everybody, welcome to On the Wheel. I am Elissa and thank you for tuning into my channel. Please hit the like button if you like the material that you hear, and please subscribe if you would like to see more videos. Okay, so today I am talking about something I know very much about. I am a mother of a son who is on the autistic spectrum. My son right now is 13 years old, and the topic today that I'm discussing is how I recognize the signs early so that I can start getting my son the help that he needed, which has proven to be beneficial. I would say, I started recognizing the signs of just certain growth milestones that he was not meeting when he was about 15 months. About 15 months, because around 15 months your toddler should be able to speak words, audible words. Usually by the time your child is 15 months, you can have that child hear them say like ball, mom, dad, tree. They may not be able to say a full sentence, but they're saying words. And I noticed in my son, about the age 15 months, he wasn't quite speaking. He was very playful. He was playing with toys and he was playing just like all the other kids, but he just wasn't speaking. And you would hear that saying all the time. Sometimes people would say, oh, boys are slow, boys are lazy, boys are behind. But you got to be careful with that, because a lot of times you'll overlook something that is a warning sign. You'll overlook it because of people's lacks in taking care of something that's really important, something that needs your attention right away. And there's also that saying that a mother knows her child. A mother knows. You know when something is not right. And for my past, I used to work with children or adults. I used to work with adults that had MRDD. That's what we said back in the day. They had MRDD. And that was always one of my fears as a mother. And I say that because nobody wants their child to not be like all the other children, playing and talking regularly. We want them to be healthy. We want them to play with other children. We want them to grow up and be the person that we want them to be. But the truth is that we're all created differently, and different doesn't mean bad. Different just means different. And so my son at 15 months, I noticed that he was not speaking like he should. And I just began to watch him. I began to notice other things that just was not adding up. And when I began to inquire with other people, because at first I thought, well, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm just doing too much because he's my son. And I had 2 daughters before that, so he's my first boy. So I'm thinking like, well, maybe this is how boys are. Maybe they are different. Maybe they grow differently. I don't know. So I'm just gonna watch. And I began to watch. I began to inquire. Began to look up things online, and I would say that the responses I got were the same. Like, well, I think he's fine. I don't see anything wrong. I don't see, but they just weren't seeing it the way I was seeing it. And as a mother, if you have a child that is on the autism spectrum, you just know there was something in you that just would not rest, and that you had to seek out more help. And it wasn't until my son was, I would say he was close to 18 months. He was not quite 18 months yet, but close to 18 months. And I had put him in a daycare facility. So I was excited because now I'm like, well, let's just see how he is with other kids his age, And believe it or not, that is when his sitter, who owned the facility, came back to me and said, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think you want to go get him checked out. Well, what happened was he was going to the facility and he would say hi. 2 minutes later, he would say hi again to the same person. That person would walk back, hi. That person would walk back again, hi. That person, by the time lunchtime came, my son had probably said hi about 15 times to them. And it wasn't just that. She said that he was repeating the shows, memorizing them. I mean, to a T. Like, not just memorizing the words, but memorizing the hand gestures, the body language. He would say it in the tone that they would say it. He was memorizing it to a T. Now, I was like, wow, that's pretty good. That boy can recite. But at the same time, it just showed that he was focused on things that the other kids were not focused on, which also separated him on the growth chart. And so I began to inquire some help, and I was founded this organization that helps children from the ages of, I want to say they help from the time the child is 1 on up to 2.5. And so with my son being, at the time, I want to say he was about 18 months when I finally found this organization. And he was about 18 months. And so they told me, like, okay, well, he's only going to be able to get so much time because, at 2.5, he gets transferred over to Head Start. And I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. But in that few little bit of time, they assessed him. They came to my home and they would do individual therapy sessions, play therapy with him. They would sit down and they would do blocks, but they would use certain vocabulary with him to help him learn how to talk, because at 18 months, he was still not talking clearly. It was still kind of like mumbled. And I knew, over time, you just kind of know how your kids talk. You just know, like, oh, he wants a cup. Like, oh, he know, like, you start learning that language. Well, I mean, we were learning it, me and my daughters, we kind of knew. But he needed to be able to talk. And so having him go to this, having the organization come to the school, the daycare, they would come to the daycare, they would come to my home, and they would help. They also referred me to go to the Children's Hospital. And it was at the Children's Hospital where they did a more intense assessment of him. And this assessment will let them know more specifically how to diagnose him. After they did the assessment, that's when they said that he was diagnosed with cognitive delay, and he had a receptive language delay. He had a sensory delay and ADHD. So put that all together. So at the time, as a young mother, I'm like, oh my gosh, what is all this stuff? What does all this stuff mean? Well, with the sensory delay, my son was very sensitive to textures, to the way things felt, the way things taste. If it was mushy, I'm outside, y'all. I'm outside, so I hope it's not too loud in the background. But he was sensitive to how things taste. Certain textures in his mouth, he did not like it. If it was mushy, it was already a no. Crunchy, that was good. But too soft, he did not like. Certain textures with his clothes, he liked. For instance, if it was something very soft, he liked that. But if it was something that was itchy, like a tag or just the material that it just was itchy, he did not want to wear it. And you would be surprised at how looking through a child's eye that has autism makes you look at life differently, makes you look at it from a different perspective. And I thank God all the time, because having my son has really shown me the world from a different view, if that makes sense. When I raised my daughters, I did not have to worry about the textures of clothes. When I was raising my daughters, I didn't have to worry about certain foods in their mouth being too crunchy or too mushy, And even for myself as an individual, these are things I probably didn't think nothing about, I didn't think nothing about that. But having my son, it makes you look at the world differently. He would touch something and he would be like, that's scratchy, or that hurt. It was just kind of like, what? And you would touch him like, I don't see nothing wrong with it. But to him, it was totally different. Even understanding language, I had to put my son into speech therapy, because the speech therapy was going to help him learn how to articulate his words. And because he was diagnosed with a receptive language delay, it meant that he could hear you. He can't hear you. He hears the words coming in, but how he understands it is totally different. Totally different. So because he understands it differently, how he explains it comes out the way he hears it. He may hear the words, but he doesn't, it's not being received the way you're expecting it to be received. So for instance, if I tell him a story about, I don't know, 3 pigs, he's gonna recite the story the way he heard it. So the end may be the first thing, the middle may be the last thing, the first maybe, it's just all discombobulated. It's all jumbled up, but that's how he heard it. And so trying to get him into speech therapy, it made him have to talk differently, but it also taught me, because I was in the sessions with him. And that's one thing I want to encourage you as a mother, as a parent with a child with any type of learning delay or disability, is to be a part of the journey. I can't stress to you how important it is for you to be a part of the journey. What do I mean by that? I mean, don't just drop your son off in the speech room and then leave out and say, I'll be out here. Go in the room with him. Learn what he's learning. Learn how to speak like the speech therapist, so when he goes home, you can know how to continue on with the therapy sessions, but at home. And I'm going to tell you this, being in the speech therapy, that taught me how to talk differently, think differently, taught me a different perspective of parenting, taught me a different perspective on language. Like I said, I had 2 daughters. I never had to worry about that. I talked to them the way I talked to them. And a lot of times I did not realize the way I talked to them was not the best way. I only taught them how I was taught. And when I had my son, I learned that I needed to be retaught in order to not talk with an angry tone, in order to not talk with a condescending tone, in order to not talk with a degrading tone, in order to talk with a more encouraging tone. And you're looking like, well, all these different tones. Believe me, kids that have any type of autism spectrum, they pick up on those tones. My son would shut down. He shut down if you felt you was raising your voice or anything, he shut down. It is like I couldn't get him to do anything. And a lot of times when we were in speech therapy, he would shut down. And I had to learn how to handle him a different way versus the way I was used to handling it with my girls. Now, usually when your kids shut down, you be like, I'm not trying to hear that. Get your book bag, pick it up, get in the room, do what I said to do. Like, but with a child that has autism, you have to gently speak to them. And a lot of times you kind of have to, sometimes you got to ignore that because you are giving them that, I would say you're giving them that permission to continue on in that behavior. And a lot of times when they notice that you're not paying no attention to them, then they feel like, okay, well, this ain't working. This ain't working. So let me try something else, So I had to learn how to talk to him. I had to learn different perspectives. I had to learn my tones. I even had to learn how to praise him because the way I was doing it, it was not as extensive as they wanted it to be. So I would just say, oh, good job, man. And they would say, no, tell them why. And I used to be like, what do you mean tell them why? And they would just say, good job putting the apple back on the table. Good job picking up all your blocks. Good job putting your coat up picking your coat up off the floor. There's little things I'm thinking like, I gotta say all of that. At first I was like, I don't need to say all of that. But what they were trying to teach me that is he needs to be able to understand that what action got him this praise. What did he do in order to understand, oh, so picking my jacket up, my mom likes when I pick my jacket up. Okay, I'm gonna pick my jacket up. So you have to be mindful that kids with autism look at the world from a different view, from a different perspective. And you have to be willing to change your perspective in order to reach the mind of a child with autism. You can't just think you know life and you've done life this way, because when you have a child that sees life differently, you have to be able to look at life through their eyes and figure out in their world, how do I reach this child and how do I get them the help that they need? So I did the assessments. I got him in not only in speech therapy, but I got him into physical therapy. He had to do physical therapy because my son was not able to go upstairs correctly. He was still staggering. He would go up one at a time, even at the age of 3, even at the age of 4. He was still going upstairs one at a time. He didn't know how to just go up the stairs. It was hard for him. He didn't understand. And so it wasn't like I was going to tell him, hurry up, come on, move your feet. No, I had to go at the pace that he was going, and we would just go one stairs at a time until eventually he understood the concept of going one foot and another foot, and then he got it. He had to do physical therapy also because he didn't understand the concept of riding a bike. That was like teaching him Japanese. He didn't understand the concept of the pedals going forward with the pressure of your feet pressing down on the pedals. It was too many tasks. We also had to do occupational therapy. Occupational therapy taught him how to hold a pencil, how to button, how to zip up zippers, how to press down on snaps. All of these things were hard for him. Even in kindergarten, he still could not do snaps and tying a shoe. Oh, it was over. We ain't doing tying no shoe. Tying a shoe was like high school, okay? We ain't there yet. I'd just be happy if you know how to put the Velcro on, okay? So we learned how to do all of that with occupational therapy. Learning how to write. They used to say all the time, like, don't write your letters in the sky, write your letters on the land. And so that would teach him how to write his letters on the line, because he would just write in the middle of the air. The words are in the sky. So we did occupational therapy. And what happened was he began to transition over time. This video is just part 1 to a 3-part series that I'm going to do on me raising a son, raising a child with autism, just to kind of help you identify certain things that you notice in your child that may not add up. You know, like I said, a mother's intuition. You just know when something is not right. You know when something is not adding up. Just to help you to know that there are organizations out there, no matter the age of the child. Call your local children's hospital, call your local, family services, and ask for resources. There are resources to help you in your process of diagnosing your child so he can get the help he needs. I will say this, because I was able to be proactive and I was able to acknowledge that my child needed the help. By the time he was in kindergarten, he was already well off than some of the other children in kindergarten. And that is because they called him a therapy baby. They call you a therapy baby because he had been in speech, physical, occupational, and since 2 years old. And at 5 years old, you're still doing all these therapies, so they called him a therapy baby. But being in therapy helped him, and he's 13 now. So being in therapy helped him have a good start. And that's what you want for your child who is diagnosed with any type of learning disability, is you want that child to have a good start, because you don't want that child to start elementary and to be behind, to be discouraged, to be overwhelmed, to be stressed out, because these are things that will produce low self-esteem in the child. And so your best bet as the mom, as the parent, is to get your child the help that they need. There are resources out there to help you. There are resources out there to partnership with you, with your child. And so on the next video, I'll talk about more or less of my child and what it was like raising a son with autism in elementary and the things that we've been through in that stage. But this video was just to inform you of the steps that I took when I noticed my child was not meeting his growth milestones the way he should have been meeting them according to, the growth chart. At a certain age you should be doing this, at a certain age you should be doing that. He was not meeting those growth milestones, and I took action. And that's the first thing you're going to have to do, is make a decision. You can either listen to the people that's telling you, oh, boys are lazy, or oh, he'll get it eventually. You can either listen to those people or you can take action. I chose to take action because I did not want it to affect my son and his schooling or his self-esteem. And I'm glad I took action, because he is where he is academically because of those steps. You always have to look at the end goal in mind for your child. Always look at the end goal. The end goal for my child is to be able to be self-reliant, to be able to be empowered, to be able to have independence. And in order to do that, I don't want to inhibit him by making excuses why he can't do something. Oh, it's just because it is, or his dad lazy, or his uncle lazy too. Like, I don't want to make excuses. I want results. And in order to do that, you have to be proactive. You have to make the moves now. So this is On the Wheel with Elissa. And I will say prayer has been my saving grace. I have prayed and prayed and prayed. But God has delivered and delivered and delivered. I prayed for the help. I prayed for the resources. I prayed for those open doors, and He delivered. He sent those people, the doctors, the therapists, the counselors, the teachers. He sent the people that needed to be in his life. And I am very grateful, and I'm thankful that where I am now is because of just God's goodness. I'm praying that you find this video informative. I'm praying that you are taking the necessary actions to help your child, and also to be encouraged that this is just the beginning. When you notice the steps and you take after this, it's just the beginning. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe, please like if you enjoyed this content, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching On the Wheel. Much love. Everybody, welcome to On the to be able to talk. But he needed, oh Lord, no. Just On the Wheel. Thank you for watching On the Wheel.